All right, we're on. Areeba, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I know I asked you before as well, but hope you're feeling better. I know you were sick.
Yes, much better.
Okay, that's good. How's life in the U.S.? You're in Massachusetts, Cambridge. How is that? What are you up to?
Life is good here. I think they're doing a really good job containing coronavirus. So there is social distancing in place and masks. So there's not much you can do out here,
Hmm.
but it's pretty good. A lot of activities have opened up, so you can go biking or kayaking and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what I've been doing outside work, of course.
That's good. That's when did you move there, by the way?
July 1st. So it's been
July,
almost a month on Canada Day, ironically.
Canada Day, and then you were in the U.S. for the Independence Day, right?
Yes.
Nice. So obviously, as an industrial engineer, I know you graduated, I think, back in 2017, right? So
Yes.
I wanted to know before anything, there's different streams and different branches that industrial engineers can choose to take, right? And one of those branches is human factors. So I really wanted to know, what made you decide to take on that stream, and if you can kind of explain to other people, maybe in a nutshell, layman terms, what human factors really is and what it's about.
Yeah. So um, just to clarify, as an industrial engineering student, I'm sure you're aware, we were never forced to pick one stream. You could select courses from the various streams that they offer. So that's human factors, information engineering, and operations research. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's the three. I picked human factors engineering, and I also took some courses from information engineering, mainly because back in ESP, if you remember, that's the engineering strategies and practice course. That's
Yes.
the design course we did in first year. We were all supposed to read this book. Now I don't recall the name. I think it was called The Human Factor.
I think it was called the human factor, and it talked about the different, basically, ladders or different
Yeah, the
dimensions.
tech ladder.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It was by Kim Vicente, and the book started off with him being an industrial engineering student at U of T, and the work he did and the concepts that were presented in the book. I could really see applications of it in real life, even as a first year student. And then my project for that course was in healthcare. We were designing a haptic feedback arm for stroke patients. So I could really put everything we were learning in the course in that one human factors related lecture to practice. So that's really what sparked my interest in human factors engineering.
Hmm.
And then as we took our courses in second year and in third year, it just got better from there.
Interesting. And so, for those that don't know, so what is the main goal for, let's say, going into human factors, let's say in the context of healthcare? Is it to, because for example, if you look at operations research, then you look at what's the most optimal way to get a specific, let's
Yes.
say, output, right? So when we're talking about human factors, is the main concept around it in order to um, make
So
life easier for its users?
yeah, exactly. So not just easier for the user, designing with the user in mind. A lot of times, often you see people, designers, engineers designing without even knowing how this product will work in
Mhm.
real life. So with human factors engineering, your goal is to reduce safety, sorry, increase safety, don't reduce safety.
No, don't do that. No.
Yeah, so it's really to increase the ease of use and the use safety of the device. So that's what I do basically in healthcare. Safety is a priority. So that's where the use safety comes in. So we don't want any design elements of the user interface to lead to patient harm or to user harm, where harm can be like hospitalization or injury or even death.
Right, that makes sense. And you said that in first year you did a project around in the medical field around the haptic arm design. Did you say it's a haptic
Yeah, so it was with Toronto Rehab. They were, so basically what it did was we designed this glove that fit onto um, a patient's arm who has had strokes. So stroke patients usually have low mobility, and the glove type of thing we designed had um, these motors that would vibrate if there was motion. So it was just to help patients increase their mobility post stroke.
Hmm, that's interesting. Again, bringing in concepts for the end user with the end user in mind. Obviously, did this start at the beginning of World War One, or was it World War Two, where they would blame the crashing of fighter jets on the pilots?
Oh, I don't even know when it started. All we know is that I know in aviation it's gotten better. The culture in aviation, they're moving away from the blame game, but in healthcare we still see that a lot. Before Fresenius Medical Care, where I am now, I was working in a hospital environment at University Health Network, and it was pretty clear based on conversations I would have with people on the unit or my participants, where they would be blaming the user themselves. Um, but yeah, I think aviation has gotten much better, and healthcare still has a lot of catching up to do because we still play the blame game. The It's just the respect we have for clinicians, um, and the expectations we have for them. The culture is just not supportive of opening up about issues and medical errors.
Yeah, which is a shame, honestly, because if you look at, let's say, like you mentioned, the aviation industry, the quality level and the tolerance for defects is so low. We've actually not only reached a Six Sigma level, but even exceeded that in
Mhm.
terms of the number of defects or the number of crashes that happen. But then when we look at healthcare, in the US, I know the stats are crazy in terms of the number of deaths that happen due to accidents.
Oh yeah, I think was it To Err is Human, the documentary, which is the book that turned into documentary. I think it quotes that there are more people that die of use related issues or medical error, preventable medical errors daily than if people were dying in plane crashes. But if people were dying in plane crashes, the consequences are so much more versus compared to like the preventable errors that we see at hospitals, the consequences aren't that high, and we're not doing too much about them.
Interesting. And from your perspective, how would you think this is going to improve in the future? And I know that it's not a black and white solution really, but what are some of the ways that you think this can be reduced? Is it by
Yeah.
having more dire consequences for mistakes, or is it just by making equipment and devices foolproof, or how do you think that would span out?
So as a human factors engineer, the first thing to remember is that it's not the user's fault.
Hmm.
So we wouldn't we do the complete opposite. We wouldn't want high consequences for medical issues or medical mistakes because understanding that it's not a person's fault, it's usually a system uh, error. So it's the system that failed and not the person. So the goal is always to design a system that supports the human being, understanding that in a hospital environment, there are a bajillion interruptions going on. It's a very dynamic environment. So you cannot expect your user so for a clinician, their priority is patient care. You can't expect them to be on, for example, a ventilator screen and read every single word of it. You can't put a paragraph on it, because the expectation from the clinician to be reading that while they're taking care of the patient is just, I think that's a stupid expectation.
Yeah.
Their priority is the patient. So we need to design something that seamlessly fits into their environment, rather than asking them to change how they do things in order to fit this new device into their environment. So I think we're already doing so much better than what it used to be. Change is not overnight. It takes time. Um, the good thing is that I'm seeing more and more companies hiring human factors engineers, because they're recognizing that it is an important skill to have, and it's not just a regulatory requirement. In the States, to release your device, you do need to go through a human factors engineering process. But now manufacturers are realizing that they need it outside that regulatory environment. You want your customers to be happy, and if you design a product that fits them rather than the other way around, you'll have more customers, so more money. On a hospital side, there I can't speak for numbers, because I'm not in the hospital. I don't work for a hospital anymore, but when I was leaving UHN, I was beginning to notice that there was more awareness of human factors engineering. There are more people in leadership with human factors background. And I think that's really the key. We need to have more human factors people in key leadership positions, because they're the ones who are going to cheerlead for us and make our pathway and advocate for us. And then obviously then leading by example. When you do some good work in one unit, they then talk about how the human factors workflow improvements had made their processes better, reduced patient times. They speak to other units. Those units then come to the human factors engineering department saying, hey, I heard about the work you did in, say, the post-op care. We want something done for our unit too. And then we send more people to the next unit. So yeah, it's a little bit of both.
That's interesting. You mentioned that there is a lot of executives and key people in leadership positions.
I wouldn't say a lot, but
well, not a lot, but you
have
see,
more
right?
people. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, that leads me really to asking, because you also mentioned that when a product or a process is to be released, especially in a sensitive industry like, let's say, aviation or healthcare or nuclear power plants, a human factors engineer would also be part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a high level methodology or framework or a series of steps that you would be able to explain or go through regarding what it looks like in order to have that approval stamp from a human factors engineer?
So on the manufacturer side, if you're trying to release a product in the States, you need to have your FDA approval. So if you're doing a 510K or a de novo, then you need to, the FDA has a guidance on human factors engineering, and that involves you including human factors from the very beginning at the start of product development or even pre-development. So a lot of my projects right now are actually pre-development. You start with user research. You need to understand your users, your use environment, how this product will work, what are the user needs, what are the environment needs, how will whatever you design fit into the big picture. You then move on to create your risk analysis. So the whole process is really a risk-based process. You create your UFMEA, so that's the use, let's see.
So is it the failure mode and effects
analysis? Yes,
yeah?
failure modes, effects analysis,
Mm-hmm.
or any form of risk analysis really, but a use-related version of it to capture all your potential use errors. So anything that could wrong, you put that in your risk analysis, and then based on the severity of harm. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with risk analyses. There's usually like a severity, a probability of occurrence, and all those different
Yep, and then you
parameters.
multiply them to get your risk factor. Yep.
Yeah. So the difference between a regular UFMEA and the use-related one is that we don't care for probability. It's more, if it's severe, you need to mitigate it as much
I
as
see.
you
So
can.
you take away the probability. It's just,
Yeah.
okay, it's just severity and it's
Severity of
also
harm. Yeah.
frequency, right? Yeah.
We don't care about frequency or
You don't-
probability of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's mainly based on the severity of harm, and then you develop your mitigation to reduce that severity of harm or eliminate it from happening. You do your formatives, you do your validation. Your validation is done on a production ready device, meaning that your device is almost ready to be marketed, and that's when you do your use related testing, where you make scenarios that are similar to real life tasks, and then you not walk the participant through it, you give the participant task as if they were doing it in real life, and then they interact with your device, perform
Yeah.
all the tasks.
Kind of like a pilot test.
Yeah, almost. And yeah, based on your validation results, you write a justification that, oh, this issue that we saw is acceptable or not. If it's acceptable, then you submit to the FDA, and then the FDA gets to decide whether your device is actually safe and effective. And if it is, they give you that stamp. So human factors engineering is one part of your bigger FDA submission. On the Europe side, you follow IEC 62366-1. That's their guidance for human factors engineering for medical devices. And then in Canada, I'm not sure if they have a released guidance, but I know the process is very similar to the FDA and Europe.
Interesting. And for those who are listening, what would you say is one or two of the most critical factors that would be necessary to make a good human factors engineer?
Sorry, you mean like skills?
Yeah, skills, yeah.
Someone who likes to or is good at talking. Like, it's a skill that can be learned, but in my line of work, you have to really talk to people, talk to end users, talk to
Soft
management.
skills are important. Okay.
So comfortable talking as well as comfortable reporting.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I ask because it's really interesting for me to know, what with all the emerging technology that's coming in and all the buzzwords that we know, right? Like neural networks, machine learning, blockchain technology, things like that, which I don't think blockchain would play a big role, but how would you say emerging technology or just the future is going to be affecting an area or field like human factors?
So I can only speak for human factors in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beginning to see things like VR technology being implemented in training. We are using data analytics to predict issues. So when you release a product, there are complaints coming in, you can use data analytics to actually make prediction algorithms to predict what kind of issues you can expect from certain clinics or things like that. On the device side, you can use AI to fully automate things, which then has concerns for human factors because you really do want the human involved in the whole process. So it would be interesting to know how that changes the medical device industry and human factors engineering. But yeah, we are moving towards a fully automated type world. You see devices making decisions for the human being now.
Hmm.
And again, the human factors around it is how automated do you want your device to be? Is 100% automation good? Don't we want the surgeon or the clinician to be involved? Do you want them to make the ultimate decision, or do you want the machine to make decisions for them? So it's questions like that arise around machine learning or AI.
Yeah, I was reading up on some of the things that AI can currently automate, which when we say AI is a very broad term, but if
Yeah.
we go down to, neural networks, which is really, involved with deep learning, then I heard that any task that would take a human being 1 to 2 seconds to do or to detect, that can be automated as of today. So then there are a lot of, like you mentioned, there are a lot of use cases for this in the healthcare industry, especially as it relates to, um, you know, identifying patterns, identifying.
Yeah. For
Uh,
example, tumors on X-rays, right?
yes, exactly, tumors, right, exactly. So that's why I was interested, because I think human factors is also another area where most of the time um, people put a lot of focus and attention on the human being to do particular tasks. And with this, I guess that cognitive workload that you put on a human would decrease. So then the nurses and the doctors would be able to put more of their focus and their energy on taking care of the patients rather than
Yeah.
running around, right?
Yeah, but on the flip side, what if you didn't train your data right? Or what if the device, the result you got isn't correct? So the level of how much decision making you want to be automated, that would be a human factors question, and it would be based on discussion on with the doctors and the clinicians, the end users, um, because I'm not.
I agree. I agree. Don't you think though that the more data that we have, the larger our, you know, training set can be, and then if we have a large training set and we use a test set as well to ensure that we get the results that we want, then at some point it's just going to be seamless.
I think it's a huge. I think I agree with you in the sense that it would really take away the cognitive burden, but I still think from, and maybe not all human factors engineers think of it that way, but full automation and full control on a device it's risky,
Mm,
because like you're playing with a person's life, right? So
I can definitely
yes,
see that. Yeah.
yes, it would be nice if the machine could, spit out, hey, here's a tumor, or this is what we're flagging. That's great. But it would be a combination of the end user and the machine's decision to what happens next,
Yeah.
instead of just the machine doing all the work and the doctor just signing it. Do you get what I mean? It's more the balance.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean, and it will be very dangerous if the system is fully automated in such a way that you can't even take control
Yeah.
over it. But if there is a way to override the system at times
Yeah.
when it's necessary, then that would provide that sort of control that you're talking
Mhm.
about, right?
Yeah. So that's the type of
Dilemma
concerns I
questions
have.
you have.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, that's really interesting. And what about for yourself, your own journey? Are you looking to continue, going deep into this field, or are you looking to come up and do more consulting work around this? What's the horizon look like for you?
Within human factors engineering, you mean? Yeah. So I was in consulting for what, 4 or 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 months ago I moved on to the client side, so the manufacturer side, and um, you never know what the future looks like, and really you never know what opportunities arise. But so far I'm really enjoying being on the manufacturer side. Consulting was a lot of fun. You got to work on many different projects, so that gave me a wide range of different devices that I could work with and applications of human factors engineering. But now I'm really getting into the deep roots of everything, which I'm enjoying. I don't know. I'm keeping my options open, maybe post grad, maybe back to consulting. So I don't have a definite answer for you.
No, that's fine. I was just curious because obviously, like you said, there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of different ways to go about this. And I also know you've been in the human factors kind of body of knowledge for some time now, for a long time now. So definitely important to get your insight on those things. Um, we're at about 28, 30 minutes now. Do you have any closing things you want to talk about, or any other topic that we didn't touch on?
No, not really. Yeah, if any of your listeners have any questions regarding human factors engineering, it's a new industry. Not many people know of it, and at school it was taught as more prototyping interface design, versus my job is all risk-based regulatory. I do interface design. I do have designers implementing it, but yeah, what I do is not really taught at school,
Hmm.
at least in first, second, or third year. So um, yeah, if anyone has any questions about human factors in healthcare, the regulatory process, how we do things, can definitely reach out.
Well, I think someone might ask this question. I wanted to know your opinion on this. What's the difference between UI and UX? Some people think it's interchangeable, but it isn't.
Yeah, so I'm not a UI UX expert. Um, I'm not sure how other companies define things, but where I am, human factors engineering is different from UI UX.
Mhm.
They have their own team, but user interf I might be wrong, so don't take my word for it, but UX is more the user experience and not just limited to what's on the interface. So
Yeah,
you're tracking the interaction and their experience and not just what's on the screen,
that makes
is
sense. I
how
mean,
I make that distinction.
whenever people, talk about how iPhones are easy to use, it's because there was a lot of work done in its UI, and I think the work that is done in UI, the product of that is UX, which is the experience that the user gets from that interface. So if we look at it by extension, and maybe I might be wrong here, but the work that you do in the hospital, for example, all the testing, all of the process that you explained that you go through, wouldn't the outcome of that really be for UX? So you're creating a certain experience for the
Yeah.
users who are in the hospital, the patients, for example.
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting. Okay, well, thanks a lot for your time. I know you're busy, and you just moved in, so hopefully you'll settle in. You said you're not feeling well, so I'll let you go get some rest. Hope you feel better soon. But thanks for joining. It was really good to hear from you.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Of course. Take care, Areeba.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.